So what we're going to be talking about is the heart tonight, and heart issues and heart disease and heart health. And as you may or may not know, it's the leading cause of death in this country is heart disease. And 50% of the time, the first symptom of a heart issue is a fatal heart attack, unfortunately. Heart disease is degenerative in nature. You know, I mean, it's one of those things that comes on a little at a time, and then depending on the severity of what occurs, that could be fatal or not. But it is degenerative. So what that basically means is we're breaking down faster. The heart is breaking down faster than it's rebuilding. And everything in the body kind of comes along and regenerates. I mean, it's things, the cells in the body part don't last forever. They break down and they split. That's the way the body works. Cells split. And when that happens, the division occurs, and when that occurs, in order for it to be correct, it has to have the right materials available to itself, to the cell, so that the mother cell or the daughter cell is a duplicate of the mother cell. And when we don't have what we need, we start getting this aberration occur in generations down the line with these cells, and then the cell becomes incapable of doing what it should do. So as far as our heart function goes, what's the function of the heart?
Pump that blood.
Pump that blood. Yep. And so we got to keep the circulation going so that the nourishment reaches the cells, the oxygen reaches the cells. That's really what it's all about. So I thought maybe it'd be good to take a look at a condition or two. One of the things is something called tachycardia, which basically is just a rapid heartbeat. So a couple of the things that might cause tachycardia or a rapid heartbeat: fear. You could be scared, that's going to increase your heart rate. You could be excited, that'll increase your heart rate. You could be exercising, working out, it's going to increase your heart rate. You could be worried about something, you could be stressed out about something. Oxygen is a biggie here. You know, if you're not getting enough of it, your heart is going to beat faster to supply that need. It's the innate intelligence of the body. You don't have to think, oh, let's see, this probably needs, I got to make a beat. It's this autonomous function that occurs in the body without your conscious awareness of it. Incidentally, vitamin C and vitamin E are important for the heart. Especially vitamin E is good for carrying oxygen transport, as they say. So if you're not getting enough oxygen to an area of the body, then the heart's going to beat faster. It's doing what Mother Nature tells it to do. When you go to the doctor and he puts you on medication for something like this, what it's going to do, of course, is slow the heart down. It's kind of defeating what's naturally occurring in the body. And what do you think might be one of the side effects of, let's say you need more oxygen in the body and your heart is not beating fast enough to supply that oxygen? Any ideas?
Don't have enough oxygen.
Yeah, you can get tired, fatigue.
Shortness of breath.
Shortness of breath, yeah. And the fatigue is a very common side effect of heart medication. The opposite end could be like thick blood. The viscosity of the blood is it's thick. And so again, the heart is pumping a little harder. What could cause that? Dehydration could cause that. Sugar can cause that. It thickens the blood. That's one of the reasons why many times you'll notice or you'll hear diabetics will lose their sight or go blind. You've got these little teeny weeny blood vessels up here, and as they get thick, the blood just can't get through. And the nerve dies and you lose the ability to see. So it's like if you've got like syrup in a straw and water in a straw and you're trying to pump, it's going to be a lot less effort to pump the water through than the syrup. So you give them a medication for that. And often the side effect is fatigue, tiredness. Adrenals. Your adrenal glands are a backup to that system. It just puts added stress on the body. We give you drugs again to defeat that system. So the innate intelligence of the body is really making all this work, these things that you don't really have to think about. There's more scenarios, but you get the idea. So instead of saying like, well, I got to go see the doctor for this so he can give me something to slow this down, to control this, we like to say and ask why. Why is this occurring? What's making this happen? And address it that way. Sometimes it's something that's missing, a nutrient of some sort. It could be something that is interfering. As far as a nutrient goes, you might need a B vitamin. Very important for the heart. Way back in the old days when they first started doing processed food and treating the grains, that's when it started. And that's when the early pioneers said that's what this is going to lead to. Guys like Royal Lee, Weston Price, Francis Pottinger, they definitely predicted this, and it's only gotten worse over the years. As far as interfering goes, we look for something that could interfere with the function of the heart. Would be like maybe a heavy metal, a food, a chemical in the body, maybe something like a bacteria or a fungus in the body. Food sensitivities can affect the heart. I have definitely encountered that over the years, where somebody's been on something for their heart and it's been a chronic condition. We've identified a food sensitivity which affected that, and it cleared it up. I mean, it can be that simple. So we can address either one or both. It could be a subluxation, a spinal subluxation, where we chiropractically adjust that, reduce or remove that subluxation that has nerve interference, so that can be affecting the workings of the heart. Any questions? Okay. So we address either one or we address both as needed. It's really, really important to take a look at the nutritional component of heart issues. So many times they can, the why can be addressed that way. Remember, we're made up of approximately 3/4 protein, our bodies are. And roughly 24, 23% fats, and the rest carbs and minerals. But when you look at our diets today, our diets primarily are carbohydrates. What we snack on, it's what we fill that, I need something, give me something, I'm hungry, and you eat something, and a carb, a quick, fast snack food, raises the blood sugar. So we need to remember that eating perpetuates the existence, makes this thing work, it keeps us going. Structures, organs, nerves, neurotransmitters, hormones, enzymatic functions within the body, and it definitely all can affect the heart. We're into so many ultra-processed foods today. We're just breaking down faster than we should. And the heart disease is just gone rampant. That, along with diabetes, is just so out of hand. And unfortunately, modern medicine, and if we sort of combine that with the pharmaceutical companies, they're not really pushing, this is how we can help this. This is what you need to do for this. The more the emphasis is more what's new? What new condition is there out there? What new symptom is there? What can we work on and do research on that will provide something that we can sell to the public to reduce the symptom? Not to address the cause, but to address, their concern is addressing the symptom. And so many drugs that we're on today, so many drugs that we're on today are long-term drugs. And drugs should be a short-term fix. Okay, there certainly is a need for drugs, but they're emergency use. Let's do this to save a life, then let's find out what's going on and repair it. You rarely see that today in modern medicine. And it's unfortunate that they don't, there's very little emphasis put on diet. They'll give it lip service. Well, be careful about this. Watch what you eat. You don't get much more than that. Yet this is such a precision machine that we're living in, and we need to support. Any other precision type machine, if you were told, or the manufacturers used scrap parts for it, the end buyer would be up in arms. This thing isn't lasting, but it's just, you don't get that from modern medicine. You don't get that from the FDA. And you probably know that until just recently, with Kennedy in there, the FDA was just a revolving door. They would go between the drug companies and the FDA. And I remember, I think I brought this up at a recent seminar, but I think there was 6 different cycles. This guy, he started as an FDA attorney. Then he went to work for Monsanto in a certain capacity. Then he left that job and he went back to the FDA at a higher position. He worked for them for a while. Then he left and went back to Monsanto in a yet higher position. Then he left again and went back to the FDA in yet a higher position. And then he went back to Monsanto again. And it's very common with everybody in the FDA. I mean, you can look at anybody's history and who's come and who's gone. And it's not like they've got your best interests at heart. They're just kind of in cahoots, the pharmaceutical companies and the FDA. So remember, our food today is just, most of our food is devitalized. There's just, you know, when food, when it's on the shelf, it's made for shelf life, right? How long will it last? And the more processed and ultra processed the food is, the less nutrition is there, or zero nutrition. The nutrition is what spoils. But yet they want it to look appetizing and appealing, and they replace what's in there with either artificial nutrition and colors and preservatives, and you eat it and it tastes good, but it doesn't do anything for you. Just no nutritive value at all. Real food comes with what you need to digest it and break it down, like take vegetables, for example, or fruits. They come with the enzyme necessary to break that food down. And you can get what you can get out of it and utilize it to rebuild yourself. The artificial stuff, the ultra-processed stuff, as good as it may taste, there's nothing, there's no ingredients in it that you're going to use, nor is there any ingredients there to help break it down. So it puts an added burden on your pancreas to try to break it down. And we don't have that same burden when we're eating real food, real fruits, real vegetables. A good test of something like that is throw it on the ground, and if it grows, you know it's good for you. When you need nutrients, and your body needs nutrients, and they're not in the food that you eat, you get them many times, they'll pull them right out of your body. It's just the survival thing, you know. I mean, your body's can always do what it can to survive as well as it can. And there's just certain processes that occur, and you need certain things. That it may pull minerals out of some place. It'll pull protein out. It's a wonderful process when you think about it, but sometimes we're living on borrowed time, and eventually we're running on empty. And when we eat all these things that we don't need, are of no use to us, it further enhances the degeneration. And then we also, like the body goes, what do I do with this stuff? And then you get these deposits throughout the body. So we got to use common sense. And the nice thing about the heart is it's very, very rich in blood and very rich in nerve supply. And the heart is one of the easier things to address and fix due to that fact. Great blood supply, good nerve supply, both of which are essential to the operation of the heart as well. I mean, a heart probably responds faster than, say, like a knee. You know, they just really respond nicely. And the nice thing about when your body is given what it needs, it's sort of like, oh, thank you, you know, and the degree of survival of the body increases. You know, when you give it what it needs, it'll take it and run with it and use it and employ it and put it to effect. And you need that. I mean, cardiac muscle is different than any other muscle. And it's good to remember, you know, the heart, I think it's about a month after the formation of the embryo. First month, the heart starts beating. And that's it, man. It just goes and goes and never stops until you die. Pretty amazing. So about 100 years ago, less than 10% of us were affected by cardiovascular disease, degenerative heart. Today it's 50%. And we can certainly point to our diets, our lifestyle. It's too bad we've just gone downhill. What we're eating, what we're putting in these bodies, what we're expecting them to run on, it's the fuel that we use. And when we're putting in those non-original parts, they can't use them. So sometimes when somebody comes in and says, well, I've got a heart issue, or I've been told this or told that, and we check them out, the heart may show up, and there may be other things that show up as well. And maybe like, you know, I mentioned adrenals and thyroid, or maybe I didn't mention thyroid, but those two are very important in proper heart function. And maybe we'll get something else in addition to the heart show up, and it might be one of those, or maybe a different organ someplace in the body. And then we can establish the priority for the body. Where do we start on a brand new patient? Where do we start? This guy comes in, he says, I've been told I have a heart problem. And we find some things, and we've got a way to establish the priority that the body wants us to start with. We'll do that, and maybe we'll find, let's say it's a thyroid and the thyroid isn't working right, and maybe there's something interfering with the function of that thyroid gland. Well, then we can find out what it is, get it out of there. We can also find out what the thyroid needs to help it function better. And when we do that, and what's nice is we can find this out in real time. Right now. We don't have to wait a few days for lab results. We can find out right now. And then in doing so, and we find out, okay, the thyroid is happy now. And we can go back and check that heart. And if that heart was malfunctioning due to a malfunctioning thyroid, the heart will test strong. It's just so cool. And there's so many heart issues that we can address and fix naturally. I wanted to talk just quickly about carbs. Another thing that can affect the operation of the heart is insulin. Can lead to heart disease, degeneration of the heart, and degeneration of the vessels. And let's take a look at carbohydrates. Carbohydrates break down into sugars. So let's say this is a carbohydrate. It's what would be referred to as a complex carbohydrate. So if you think back to high school or college, and these are like bonds, so to speak. And what happens when you eat an apple or something like that, these things break down. So that bond breaks off. And then let's say this guy does. And now it's in its simplest form, that sugar molecule, that sugar bit there that's part of that overall carbon molecule. Now it goes into the bloodstream. It's just there's no further digestion needed there. And it happens slowly. So let's say here's your blood sugar level, and as these things break off and these things enter the blood sugar starts going up. And as the blood sugar goes up, and what's excess blood sugar, the pancreas picks up and puts out insulin. If your body isn't going to use the sugar that's in the blood. And it stores that. It converts the sugar to fat. Stores it as fat, which is like future energy. Now when you go home and you're hungry and you want something quick to fill that hole, well, what you do is you grab, some quick fast food snack out of the cupboard, and that's what it's like when you eat it. It's like there's nothing complex about it. As soon as you eat it, that sugar goes right into your blood, and your blood sugar then does that. And at that point, it can be dangerous for your body, too much sugar. And so if things are working as they should, man, a bunch of insulin gets pumped out to bring that back down. If that's not coming back down for whatever reason, or if your pancreas isn't working correctly, or you're just living on this stuff, it's always going to be high. So you're always going to have a bunch of blood sugar and a bunch of insulin, neither of which is good for the heart. So we've got to straighten that out. We've got to real food. That's what we need to do, is real food. I mean, I don't want to sound like, your mother preaching to you or something, but that's what it takes. A dessert now and then is okay, a treat, but we can't live like this. I mean, that's the simplicity of what we do. We look all around for these answers, and we go off on these tangents, and we've made it so complicated, we've lost sight of what's right here. And that's, if we can return back to these basics, so many conditions can be minimized, especially the heart. And drugs just complicate it. I realize drugs can be life-saving as well when we reach a point where they're vital, they're totally essential. But in my opinion, there's far more people on medication than what need to be. They don't know, and they're not taught that by their allopathic doctors, that go home and clean up your diet, get off the sugar, eat real food, don't drink a pot of coffee a day. All these things they don't belong in us, and they create these different effects. All right, any questions? Medicines short circuit what our bodies were intended to do and are capable of doing.
about a diabetic that needs insulin, or like a type 1 diabetic? I mean, is that gonna affect their heart? You know, that.
How about a type 1 diabetic that needs insulin? Well, I guess yes and no. First of all, a type 1 diabetic isn't going to be eating a lot of sugar. Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't be. Yeah, they shouldn't be. Actually, let me just digress for a moment. That's a good thing, because too many times diabetics, be they type 1 or type 2, are told, watch your sugar, you know, monitor it, and if it's going too high, you're going to be out partying or whatever, take some extra insulin. What a terrible thing to tell somebody. I mean, it could save their life, but that's not the point. The point is, clean up your life.
Yeah.
Clean, you know, it's not an optimum situation. Somebody that's on regular insulin. And in type 2 diabetics are, as you probably know. Yeah, type 1 is more genetic. And it is something that, you know, we can absolutely help type 2 diabetics. Type 1 diabetics, sometimes yes. Interestingly enough, sometimes parasites are involved with type 1 diabetics. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I hope you learned something tonight. If you're suffering from heart issues and heart diabetes or heart maladies of some sort, if you haven't come in and you would like to, do so, because there's a very good chance we can help with what's going on and keep you off of drugs or keep your drugs minimal. Or if you are on drugs, we can also, and those cause other things, we can also find out, well, what is that drug doing besides affecting the heart, and how can we address that so you can stay on that drug if it is a life-saving drug for you. We can find out, like, oh yeah, that's affecting you know, your kidney. What can we do to help that kidney so that kidney doesn't suffer a side effect from your heart medication? Things like that. Okay.